Well, I've talked about numerous game shows, but I haven't really talked much about some of those panelist game shows and what have you. And I know one that's been revived numerous times and what have you. And well, I've only seen a little bit of some of their shows. And that show would be To Tell the Truth, as it's featured in this episode of the Wide World of Game Shows right now. Big D's Entertainment Rankings and Reviews presents Wide World of Game Shows! Greetings, my fellow YouTubers. I'm Noel, the Big D to you. This is Big D's Entertainment Rankings and Reviews. Back again with another episode of the Wide World of Game Shows. Today, I'm going to be talking about probably one of, if not the most popular game shows, which feature panelists in control, presented with 3 contestants, and must try and figure out who has an unusual occupation, what have you. One's the real person, and the other 2 are imposters. What game show am I talking about? Easy. It's this game right here. So now, without further ado, I bring to you To Tell the Truth. To Tell the Truth was a game show where 4 celebrity panelists had to try and decide who was the real person that had, well, was mentioned in a letter, and the other 2 are imposters. The show originally premiered on CBS in 1962 and has been revived numerous times. I'll be talking about all versions of this. Now, To Tell the Truth is actually a panel show, as I mentioned, in which 4 celebrity panelists are presented with 3 contestants, the team of challengers, each an individual or pair, and must identify which is the central character whose unusual occupation or experience has been read aloud by the show's moderator or host, as I've mentioned. When the panelists question the contestants, the 2 imposters may lie, whereas the central character must tell the truth. Now, the setup adds the imposter element from other shows that were produced by the same studio, Mark Goodson and Bill Todman, who I forgot to mention, as they had already done that with other game shows they've done, including What's My Line and I've Got a Secret. Now, the show was created by Bob Stewart, who, of course, would create The Price is Right and other games, and even produced some of his own games after being with Goodson and Todman. Now, the show's original host was Bud Collyer, who was best known for doing this show. Now, Collyer hosted the show from 1956 to 1968. Now, of course, Collyer was a big star and what have you. He was actually best known for doing the voice of Superman in the Adventures of Superman radio program in the 1940s, and also performed in the Superman cartoons from Max Fleischer. He also even voiced of Superman for Filmation's The New Adventures of Superman in 1966, which was the last thing he did before his death. Anyway, the show ended in 1968, but was brought back the following year in syndication and was hosted by Gary Moore, and was sent to syndication and stayed on the host until 1977. Though Moore's health trouble resulted in a number of guest hosts during his tenure and led to his eventual retirement, to be replaced on a permanent basis as host by Joe Garagiola, a former panelist and frequent guest host. He hosted the show until the show was canceled in 1978. 2 years later, it was brought back for another syndicated run and was hosted by Robin Ward, which I've seen a little bit and what have you. Now, of course, the original CBS daytime had over 1,600 episodes. The first syndicated version had the most episodes, with over 1,700 episodes produced and aired. The daytime syndicated version, the second one, only lasted for one season with 195 episodes. Later on, it was brought back, and this time on NBC. And, well, originally, it went through three different hosts. Future talk show host Gordon Elliott was the original host. Then football star and later moderator Lynn Swan, and then Jeopardy host Alex Trebek, whom after he had recently hosted the network's Classic Concentration. And then it was revived yet again in syndication from 2000. And its host was John O'Hurley from Seinfeld, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Now, the NBC daytime version only lasted for one season with only 190 episodes. I can't be really sure how much the later syndicated run lasted. Now, of course, ABC recently revived the show in 2016, and it's been hosted by Anthony Anderson, which so far that version has 86 episodes produced and aired. Alright, let's get to the rules. Although there have been some variations in the rules over the years, including the addition of a secondary game in some versions, certain basic aspects have remained consistent throughout all versions of the show. 3 challengers are introduced, all claiming to be the central character. The announcer typically asks the challengers, who stand side by side, starting with, "Number 1, what is your name, please?" Each challenger then states, "My name is," well, central character's name. Celebrity panelists then read along as the host reads aloud a signed affidavit about the central character. If I mispronounce the word, I apologize. The panelists are each given a period of time to answer, to question the challengers. Questions are directed to the challengers by number designated number 1, number 2, and number 3, with the central character sworn to give truthful answers, and the imposters permitted to lie and pretend to be the central character. After questioning is complete, each member on the panel votes on which of the challengers he or she believes to be the central character, either by writing the number on a card or holding up a card with the number of their choice without consulting the other panelists. Any panelist who knows one of the challengers or has another unfair advantage is required to recuse or disqualify themselves, which, for scoring purposes, is counted as an incorrect vote. They would also sit out of the questioning. Once the votes are in, the host asks, "Will the real person's name please stand up?" The central character then stands, often after some brief playing, fainting, or false starts among all 3 challengers. Occasionally, the central character would be asked to do something else related to his or her story instead of standing up. The 2 imposters then reveal their real names and their actual occupations. Prize money is awarded and divided among all 3 of the challengers, based on the number of incorrect votes received by the imposters. Now, I will point out the NBC version was the one I mostly had seen. Now, just about all versions of this, well, I'm not sure about the 2000 version or the current ABC version being rerun on Game Show Network. Anyway, To Tell the Truth originally premiered in prime time as Nothing But the Truth, but later got changed to Tell the Truth the day before the show's debut. Bud Collyer was the show's host. Mike Wallace, yes, you heard me correctly, as in the late great Mike Wallace, who would go on to be a reporter for the long-running 60 Minutes, hosted the pilot. Now, I have recurring panelists by the 60s that included Tom Poston, Peggy Cass, Orson Bean, and Kitty Carlisle. Cass and Carlisle stayed on as panelists for most subsequent editions. Earlier panelists include Johnny Carson, Polly Bergen, Jane Mills, Donna Meach, Hy Gardner, Dick Van Dyke, Faye Emerson, Hildy Parks, John Cameron Swayze, Betty White, and Ralph Bellamy. Vern Bennett, Collier's announcer on Beat the Clock, yes, Collier hosted that. That will be coming up in a future, well, later on this month, was the inaugural announcer for the show in the 50s. Upon Bennett's transfer to CBS's LA studios, Johnny Olson, who of course would later go on to do The Price is Right and other games for Goodson and Tomlin, joined the show in 1960 and remained until 72. And let me tell you, there's a whole lot and what have you. There's too much to mention about, so I'm not really going to tell everybody about all of these. But I will tell you that this had so many and what have you. Now, of course, the first syndicated version was hosted by Gary Moore, who was formerly the host of Goodson and Tomlin's I've Got a Secret, as well as the CBS variety series The Gary Moore Show. Now, Orson Bean was a regular panelist during the first year, plus Peggy Cass and Kitty Carlisle, along with game show pioneer Bill Cullen, were regular panelists as well, who was also the designated substitute host whenever necessary. Main regulars from the original run appeared, including Tom Poston and Bert Convy, another game show host who would go on to host Tattletales and Super Password. Semi-regulars from during the 68 to 73 time period included Gene Rayburn, who would host Match Game, Nipsey Russell, Joe Garagiola, and Tony Roberts. Anyway, yep. There was so many to go on through. Then Robin Ward, who was a Canadian TV personality series host, and Alan Coulter was the announcer. He actually was a later announcer for the previous one. Now, previous regulars made frequent appearances, but there were no regular panel for this edition, unfortunately. And it never recaptured the popularity of the original. Oh well. Now, of course, when in 1990, the show was now on NBC. It started in September of 1990. And unlike previous versions that originated from New York, this version was taped at NBC's Burbank studios. And the show's theme music was an orchestral remix of the 69 to 78 theme minus the lyrics. And the show utilized the block letter logo from 73 to 78. Music started out like this. I hope I don't mind humming a few tunes. Well, a bit of it. That's how it goes. Now, actor Richard Klein hosted 2 pilot episodes with Charlie O'Donnell, who of course was the announcer for Wheel of Fortune at the time. Yeah, was the announcer. One of these was accidentally aired as the premiere episode in the Eastern and Central zones. The first regular host was Gordon Elliott, who was a reporter for TV's A Current Affair, and of course he later had his own talk show. With Vernon Richardson, who I'm not 100% sure, but I think he was the first African-American announcer, but I could be wrong, though. O'Donnell served as a substitute. After 8 weeks, a dispute with Elliott's former employers in Australia temporarily forced him off the American television altogether. His replacement was then frequent panelist Lynn Swan, who of course was the first African-American host of the show. He held it for the next 14 weeks until his job as a reporter for ABC Sports. Then Alex Trebek was brought in as his replacement for the remainder of the run at the same time he was hosting Classic Concentration and Jeopardy! Mark Goodson filled in for 2 episodes. Trebek missed when, during a taping, his wife Jean went into labor with their son Matthew. Now, the select panelists for this version of the period include several of the 70s panel stalwarts, including Kitty Carlisle and several others. Anyway, now Now, there was a new game that was featured in the 1980 version and was brought back for this one. I forgot to bring this up. It was called One on One. After the second game of To Tell the Truth was played, a seventh civilian player was brought out with two stories, and a member of the studio audience was given an opportunity to win money by trying to figure out which of the two stories was true. Each panelist was given the opportunity to ask the contestant one question for each story, and after both stories had been presented, the audience member chose which one he or she thought was the truth. After the choice was made, the contestant revealed the right answer, and if the audience member came up with, he or she won $500. But if the contestant stumped the audience member, that player won $1,000. Incredible. Then, of course, in 2000, John O'Hurley of wait a minute, I think I said Seinfeld. Was he Seinfeld? Also, I think I'm, yeah, he was on Seinfeld. Whoops! I almost thought he was on Frasier. I didn't watch those two. Sorry, everyone. Let's see. He hosted this version syndication. Brian Richardson returned as the announcer, who, of course, he was also currently announcing the Sting Family Feud, which was recently brought back that same year. Now, the only regular to appear on every episode of this edition was actor Meshack Taylor, who most of you know him from TV's Designing Women. Also, Paula Poundstone was a regular, and others include Brooke Burns, Dave Coulier, you know from Full House, Brad Sherwood, Tracy Bingham, Kim Coles, and Cindy Margolis. Yes, Kay Carlisle appeared as a panelist for one episode in the first season, making her the only panelist to appear on all incarnations of the show. Until it was her final appearance in the franchise before her death in 2007. Anyway, okay, well, it did okay, but it just okay, yeah, and GSN did air the this version. Okay, ABC had recently picked it up with Anthony Anderson, who of course was recently on NBC's Law and Order and was also in numerous films and what have you, was the host. Never saw this version, but I had seen, well, previews of it. It looks pretty good and what have you. Excuse me, please stand by. Sorry about that. Now, this one had, and this show ran for an hour, unlike the other versions, which had a half hour. Now, most contestants introduced themselves solely by claiming the central character's story. For example, I was a Bond girl rather than my name is. So, and scoring was, well, when panelists would receive 10 points for correctly identifying the central character, or 20 points for the final round, 1 and 2 points in earlier episodes. So, anyway, yeah. Panelists have included the late great Betty White for the first season, and several others. In the second season, regular panelists were eliminated, as was the house band. But anyway, yeah. I will say that To Tell the Truth is still pretty good. Like I said, I haven't watched the ABC version though, but I do believe it's pretty good. But I've seen clips of the first syndicated version, and I've seen a few episodes of the 80s syndicated version, but mostly the NBC version, and a few episodes of the 2000 syndicated version. But anyway, this went through so many changes and what have you. There would be a board game released in 1957 for the original series, and during the 2000 version, a single-player online game was offered by the short-lived website Uproar.com, just like what they did with Family Feud. There was a slot machine based on the 69 version was released to American casinos in 2002. Also, To Tell the Truth has been has been in international formats as well. So anyway, so now you know about To Tell the Truth. I think it's pretty good. I think I need to watch some more one of these days. I will someday. But if you've seen To Tell the Truth, which versions have you seen? Which is the one you're mostly familiar with? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, click the like button, subscribe, and be a part of the Big D Nation. And now I've got a quick announcement. Slight change of plans for my last few reviews. My reviews I planned for the last the month. Now next time you will get the Never Back Down review along with, and then the Agent Cody Banks review. But then on Wednesday you will get the Agent Cody Banks to Destination London review, and I'm going to be sending the change up to follow. Okay. Now details to follow if I decide to push up Superbad and or role models, I'll let you know, okay? Good, that about covers it. Now, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Wide World of Game Shows, and if you did, check out these other episodes. In the upper left-hand corner is the episode on The Price is Right. In the upper right-hand corner is the episode on Family Feud, or if you'd like, you can go to the bottom left-hand corner and see the episode I did on Match Game, which its new version on ABC, which was more recently canceled because, well, I think you know the story on Alec Baldwin. And the bottom right hand corner is the button you can click to subscribe. If you like rankings and reviews on movies, TV, music, video games, etc., as well as the Wide World of Game Shows, then I'm your guy. Thanks for watching, and we'll have another episode of Wide World Game Shows coming up next week. So until next time, I'm the Big D saying, see ya.